For more on Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff's impeachment trial, I'm joined by Professor Carlos Pio via Skype. He specializes in political science and global economies and teaches at the University of Brasilia. Thank you so much for joining us. Professor, are you surprised at all that the trial was extended? What do you think we'll see on Wednesday?
We will see a clear vote. It doesn't seem probable that any surprise will arrive. So President Roussef will be impeached by something between 54 and 58 votes. That's the expectation.
Well, we saw she answered questions for hours on Monday, even though she knows the likely outcome. Why was it important for her to stay and speak for such a long time?
Yeah, for 14 hours. She was answering questions. Senators were able to ask questions for 5 minutes, but she had no time frame to answer. I think that she wanted the spotlight to make a speech emphasizing the way she sees the process and trying to get the message through, not to the senators themselves, but to the former electorate that it seems is declining very fast.
If she is removed, Michel Temer will be the president of Brazil until the end of her term. Is there any chance that he could be removed from office? Can he accomplish anything for Brazil in the next 2 years?
Well, there is a chance. Every politician that is being investigated is subject to the justice system. So if it is the case that his name appears in the investigation, it might be a call for an impeachment also. But this is not likely. It seems that all the investigation that was conducted until now, his name was just lightly mentioned. Well, he can do a lot of things. I think that damage control has already been done. The presidency of Ms. Roussef was, in fact, very unskillful. She chose very bad economic policies and regulations in general. We had a crisis in many different areas of the state, for example, the electrical sector. And so I think that the fact that he has appointed a very credible economic team and has built a solid, what seems to be a solid base in Congress, will allow Brazil to navigate through such difficult times until the end of the term.
So what do you think is next for Dilma Rousseff and for Brazil? She does have some supporters. There have been violent protests in support of her in Sao Paulo. So what happens next for them?
Well, for her, she will lose her political rights for 8 years. It has already happened to a former Brazilian president. President Collor was impeached in '92, suffered the same process. She was not a politician to start with, so there's no big impediments for her. She had never taken office before being a president, elected office, I mean. For her supporters, what we've seen today are more radical and propaganda sort of political strives, and we're going to see a little bit of that. Violence is one way of expressing political anger in Brazil that has been in place for ages. We don't expect that to be over, but it's much less than it was, let's say, in 2013, when we've seen mass street protests in Brazil, and even less than when the impeachment hearing was to be decided in the first place back in April. So it seems it's fading away very fast, and what we've seen in Sao Paulo are good images for the news, but in fact a very small group of 50 to 100 people taking advantage of the fact that taking the state police by surprise. So I don't expect to see any political protest movement growing. Normality will come along as we leave the impeachment backwards.
All right, Professor Carlos Pio, thank you so much for joining us from Brasilia.
My pleasure.